Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is Kori Prince, and I am so excited to actually welcome you to our podcast, our H.E.A.L podcast. H.E.A.L is an acronym for Help, Elevate, and Learn, and it's a guide for healing your inner child, which goes with my best-selling book, which I wanted to share in the audio form, and actually, to be honest with you, to have people come in and actually share their insight. And I am so excited about our guest today, and I tell you, she is going to help all of us understand more about not only ourselves, but even our parenting skills as well. But listen, this episode is brought to you by none other than BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose Sakoni Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. We are so excited that BetterHelp has saw the value in what we're doing and has come alongside to help sponsor this podcast. So with that being said, I want to bring up our guest today, and she is none other than Kori Lauritsen. Kori, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome. So tell the people about yourself and why should they listen to you today?
So my journey began, I would say, well, your journey starts when you're born, but it really began down this path of understanding behavior when I had kids and became a parent, because there's no manual. It's the most important job we probably have in this world. And there's no instruction manual on how to do that. And I was really struggling. And I was noticing I was lacking patience, and I have a strong-willed child. And so that led me down a path of really understanding myself and the why behind my own behavior, so I could be a better resource and support for my own children. And so once I spent years, this is over a decade, my kids were toddlers when this started. My daughter will be 14 soon, and my son's 16. And this has turned into something that I wanted to share with other parents, because I didn't want parents to feel how I felt, or I don't want parents to feel how I felt. And I wanted to offer and share the tools and things that have really helped me in this journey. So I launched a podcast. So it's Conscious Not Crazy by Kori. And that name came from literally, I felt crazy. I felt out of control. I was not composed. And I would say I'm a really patient person. I was not behaving like a patient person with my toddler that was very challenging, and nothing was wrong with him. I think a lot of parents are looking for someone to fix their kid or make their kid easier. And they think the child is the problem. Well, really what I learned is I was the problem. And I just lacked tools and skills to better support my child, or I wasn't managing the behavior in the best way that I could. So that led to the podcast. And now, I've done for 10 years, I've taught a parenting class, not because I'm the perfect parent, because there is no perfect. But I've taught this class, and now I'm getting out in the world and just speaking to parents, large groups of parents and educators. I have an education background. And so speaking, consulting, and podcast is what I'm doing now. Yeah.
Cool. You reminded me of a quote that I have in my book, and it's the first quote in the book. It says, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." That's
good.
By Frederick Douglass. And that was in 1855.
Yeah.
1855.
So true. None of the things I talk about are new. It's just putting them all together in different contexts, I guess.
Right. And that's so true. So and I really like the approach, in fact, that you're taking, because oftentimes on this show, where we talk about you know adults that have inner child issues and inner child wounds and traumas, but you are being preemptive in your attempts to help the parents to make sure that they're not raising traumatized or hurt or wounded children. So that is an amazing endeavor. And again, I want to applaud you for putting in that work, because so many of us, we don't take the time, to realize that, yeah, it may not be them, it may be us. you know and that's one of the focus that that I have, especially with my book, because I believe that at times we have a lot of grown children that are out operating in the world, and they don't realize they're operating from that place. And
Mhm.
so raising that level of awareness is critical. So I want to start with the questions that I normally ask all of my guests, because everybody has a different take and a different perspective, and so I always want to hear what it is, what your background, what your experience has been in reference to these. So my first question is, in your professional or personal opinion, how important is inner child healing?
I mean, I think to be truly the best person you can be, and this
Hmm.
applies to me as a parent, it
Right.
applies to a business owner, it applies to a teacher. If you want to be the best at whatever you're doing, you really have to do inner work. And you
Right.
really, because we're always working with people and we're in relationship with people. It doesn't matter if it's a personal relationship or a business relationship or the relationship with my child, but relationship requires us to understand the why behind our own behavior, so we don't take other people's behavior personal, so we
Right.
don't react in unhealthy ways because we're triggered. So, I mean, I think it's absolutely necessary to understand, like I said, to become the best parent I can be. And I have a whole presentation on this. I have to become the best version of myself and
Right.
really understand when we're born, because of how we're raised, because I think people associate trauma, there's different levels of trauma in
Right. Right.
childhood, right? Um, and I think what I'm referring to is not trauma in the form of abuse, but just we all experience trauma in different ways. Like I
Right.
would say I grew up as a people pleaser because
Right.
we were raised in a generation where don't be rude, be kind, hug them, being told just to be polite all the time. So what happens with that, you can grow up into this people pleasing habit. Well, we can't please other people. That doesn't serve me and that doesn't serve them.
Right.
So what we have to do to heal ourselves, and which is what we want to do, because healed people heal people, hurt
Right.
people hurt people.
Exactly.
And you can't teach what you don't possess.
That's true.
So, I mean, it's just necessary if you want to be present, conscious, authentic, and show up as your best self. So I really don't see any other way to do that. But a lot of people, I mean, it doesn't always feel good, right?
No, no, no. And one of the quotes I came up with, and I've shared this several times, it said, "The bravest thing you can do is to heal from your hurt."
Yeah.
That's the bravest thing you can do, is heal from your hurt. And I was sharing, in fact, with my cousin just the other day that, if we don't heal from our hurt, we will bleed on people who didn't cut us.
100%. Because
Yeah.
I know what I noticed as a parent when I would be triggered and I'd react initially before I learned some of these tools and skills.
Right.
It might have been because I was running late. I was frustrated. My life was already inconvenienced. And then I would lash out at my kids because they did one other thing. And that's not fair to them. It's not fair to anyone. And no one else, as parents, will say, "You're pushing our buttons." Well, no, it's my choice, my behavior, my choice. Their behavior, their choice. Because my kids will say, "Well, they blame, they're kids. They're going to blame, they're going to deflect."
Right.
And I'm like, "Wait, who's in charge of you?" And my
Mm.
kids roll their eyes because they know I'm going to say that. ultimately, who's in charge of you? Well, but they did, okay, they did that, but who's in charge? You can't control the outside world. We can't control other people. We
Right.
can't control our circumstances. All we can control is how we react to them.
So in
So,
other words, you're saying that we need to learn how to self-regulate.
oh yeah. So I call that, we need to be composed, have composure, and not feel, maybe not be so on edge and anxious. And one way, or a tool that's really helped me with that, is gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
like flipping the situation, seeing the good and the bad. And I read it, I think, I follow somebody on TikTok or something, and he said this, and I love that. And it's like a Christian, he posts reels all the time.
Uh-huh.
And he said, and the Bible says this, you can't feel anxious and grateful at the same time.
Right.
So if you're in a place of gratitude, it releases that anxiety that we feel.
That is so true. An amazing cap on that. So our second question is, in your professional or personal opinion, when should someone start inner child work?
I mean, here's how I see that
Okay.
is, as soon as you notice, like for me, it was that moment where I was like, this isn't me. I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like this is who I am. Something's going on here. Like I felt out of control.
Right.
And so it was having an effect on my kids, my family, me, and then I'd have the guilt because I was yelling at my kid.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously, it's never too soon. I think it's just a matter of when you see it impacting the people you care and love about, meaning your behavior. Again, not about them, about us. It's about
Right.
us. To be our best selves, we have to look inside. And so now, am I perfect about it? No. But I'm very present and conscious after years of work in noticing, oh, there it is again. Okay, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I taking that personal? Why do I feel the need to defend? So I start to feel that need to react, or maybe I start to react, but I catch myself. Because what we're doing is our brains are wired from birth based on how we're raised, right? It doesn't mean
Right.
our parents were bad or wrong, but there's pathways and things that are wired in our brain. And in order to do this healing, you're rewiring your automatic reaction to situations, and
Right.
rewiring the brain takes a lot of repetition,
Yep.
takes a lot of consciousness, and it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then the process, I don't think ever ends. Like, I think it's a constant evolving process. And I know in the business world, they say as soon as you become satisfied, right? You think you've got it and you're in a good spot and you kind of settle in and get comfortable, that's when things go bad. So I
Yeah.
see this as the same. Don't get comfortable. Keep working. Keep trying to show up as the best version of yourself, because that version is going to keep changing and getting better.
Exactly. And honestly, you have to fall in love with the process.
Yeah.
Because if you don't fall in love with the process, you will never get to the destination. If you don't fall in love with the journey, you will never get where you're going. So you have to fall in love with putting in the work, because that's what's going to get you the results. But even that, you know, it should come with a certain level of satisfaction, but also dissatisfaction, because you know that there's more you can do.
100%. Yeah.
Now, you've already kind of hit on our third question here. Okay.
I'm like this word right here. Stay humble.
Stay humble. Hey, that's okay. Don't even get me started on that. Humility should be the key component of every human being, because we started off totally helpless. We didn't even know how to feed ourselves, change ourselves, nothing. We were defenseless, and we had to have somebody to look out for us. And then now we find ourselves in a role and in a place to where we're doing that for someone else. So yeah, definitely stay humble. Well, you actually kind of hit on the third question, which is, how does trauma show up in life and in relationships? So you kind of hit on that, but expound upon that a little bit more if you can.
Yeah, I mean, it shows up in every relationship. It shows up in friendships. It shows up in work relationships.
Mm.
It shows up it shows up as, like I said, that feeling of, why do I feel defensive? Because the truth is, if something's true, there's no need to defend it. And I think I read that in the Four Agreements. It's one of my favorite books.
Right,
And
right.
if it's true, it's true. And I tell my kids that if it's true, it's true. If you're feeling the need to defend whatever it is, you need to look inside and think, well, is that true?
Mm,
We have to really why? Because if I feel defensive, I'm like, oh, that's a signal to me that's a big one for me. When that feeling shows up, I really got to take a look inside. And
yeah.
it's interesting too, because with friendships, I'm very intentional on that. I don't want friends that are going to tell me I'm great all the time. I don't always love what they tell me, but I respect them. And that's the
Right.
kind of friend I want. I don't want the superficial friends that are just going to tell you all the things. And there's a loving way to do that too.
Of course, of course.
So I think that's one. The way when we're, maybe with a spouse or a partner, there's conflict, right?
Right.
Some people are conflict avoidant, some people love conflict. So, so understanding how we show up in those scenarios. And I think boundaries are I learned to master. I will say I've gotten very good at boundaries over
Good.
the years. And there's a great book called Boundaries. And there's a lot of sub books after, that are little offshoots of that are not quite as thick. But because boundaries aren't about what another person, they're about what I'm willing to do or not do. And boundaries work with any relationship, and they're necessary. And they say, or Brene Brown says, that the most compassionate people are
Mm,
very boundaried.
right, right.
So
They
yeah.
respect themselves, which allows them to respect other people. And one of my go-to scriptures is, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people have yet to truly fall in love with themselves and appreciate themselves and see their own value. And that's why it's hard for them to do that in other people. And so,
100%. I tell my kids, if somebody is hurtful to my child at school, they say something hurtful, my kids come home and tell me what the child said, when they were younger, they might have called them a name or
right,
whatever. And I say, well, why do you think that child did that? And my
right,
kids, because we've been using this language a long time now, and they're like, because they're not happy. It's like hurt people
exactly.
hurt people. So, but let's think about this. Why do you think that child's not happy? Instead of taking it so personal, seeing their behavior as separate from, so my child can separate and know that their behavior is not their responsibility. And because
Right,
I'm like, you never know. We need a lot more empathy for people and understanding. Because when people are rude to me, like I was driving the other day, I was headed to the gym and I had the right of way. I was turning right and my light was green. And this little old lady pulls right in front of me. I almost hit her, but I didn't. Well, she's waving at me. She's mad. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I'm kind of laughing. Now, years ago, I might have been like, well, what, I might have reacted and been
right,
like, well, that was, people get mad. They're like, well,
right.
that's crazy. And they might name call or whatever. But I looked at her and I'm like, wow, that sweet old lady's still driving. And, I'm just thankful we didn't have an accident. I hope she's safe. But when
Right,
you're able to focus on the positive and see the good and have positive intent for her and just think, gosh, I pray she's safe.
right,
It feels so much better than carrying that negative attitude and perspective, because that weighs you down. Just
right.
like the same with the gratitude piece or forgiving people. When we can't forgive people, that hurts us, not them.
That's true. That's true. And you remind me of something that one of my coaches told me, and that is default to the positive. That
Yes.
should be our default
Yep.
to the
Positive
positive.
intent is what I call it. But yeah, same
Yeah,
thing. Just
yeah,
see the good, see the good.
yeah. And I try to encourage people not to be reactors, but responders,
Hmm.
because we don't have first reactors, we have first responders. And
I
that
like,
means that means that they run drills and they do scenarios and they have a response for something. Have you ever gotten a call from a telemarketer and they are getting their little spiel and you say this and then they say something else, you say this and they say something else. They are reading a script that says if this person say this is your response. If they say this is your response. If they say this is your. They have a response to whatever you're offering. And see, they have trained themselves to do that. They've gone through a class and training, and they may even have something at their reading. But for us as individuals, instead of us just reacting, we need to work on respond. Is that the way you want to respond? Or are you just reacting? And then, of course, like you said earlier about triggers.
Well, and I think, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think too, we're modeling, right? From a parent perspective, because I talk a lot about parenting or even a teacher educating kids, but this applies to the workplace. If you're not modeling the values or the behaviors you're asking the kids or the people that work for you, they're not going to respect you. So you need to model that if that's a value for your organization or for your household. And what we do matters way more than what we say. And to your point on, the responses, I heard this saying and I love it. You'll like this one. Feelings should be indicators, not dictators.
Ooh, yes, I got to write that down. I'll go back and watch this again, but that's a good one. Feelings should be indicators, not dictators. And I think oftentimes they are. We give them the throne and let them mete out judgment because they are being the dictators of our life and not indicators. Yeah.
And if you don't like how you're feeling, and I tell my kids this, if you don't like how you're feeling, change what you're thinking, because our thoughts control that, right? So if I'm we all have days where I'm pretty positive, but I have days where I'm in a funk too. And I'm like, well, gosh, I'm choosing this. So what am I thinking? What do I need? I need to go for a walk. I need to go change my thought process. I need to go focus. I need to go be grateful because I have a lot to be grateful for. So we all do. We all do.
Yeah, that's so true. So what do you believe is the biggest obstacle when it comes to inner child healing for adults and, and I guess even for kids as well?
So I think adults, or I said this the other day, it's like they're doggy paddling, trying to keep their head above water right now, because it's hard being a parent today or a business owner and a parent, all of the things, because we're trying to juggle all of these things. I mean, I felt like a crazy person yesterday because I missed signing my son up for something. And I was like, it's okay. I think of it as we're juggling, right? We're juggling and we have glass balls and rubber balls. Just don't drop the glass ones. And the glass ones, they're going to be my kids. Like I'm going to neglect, okay, I didn't order the thing, but nothing traumatic happened. Right. So we want to think about which balls matter the most, because we get so many emails and so much communication, and there's just so much. So parents are overwhelmed. So I think time. I think parents are already overwhelmed. I think people are overwhelmed, and it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to look at yourself and to acknowledge maybe some things you don't love about yourself. And it takes time and work, and it takes time sitting and thinking and doing nothing. And we're not a society of people that are great at doing nothing. But doing nothing has helped me a lot. We're just going for a walk and just giving myself time to think and process. And if I'm able to start my morning that way by like reading a daily reading and just sitting there quietly and having intention for my day, my days are always better. So I would say really the struggle is time and discomfort.
And that's so true.
And not knowing what to do, not knowing where do I start. My favorite quote is "Don't give up better for perfect." It's like, pick one thing. You don't have to pick up, too often people get focused. I'll compare it to Taekwondo. My kids did Taekwondo. We all did Taekwondo at one point. And people focus, the black belt's so far away, right? It seems so out of reach when you start, but you don't focus on that. You focus on the next belt. And then when you do that, like if you're writing a book, like you wrote a book, to think about writing the book feels overwhelming. But if you think, if I just break it down and I get this much done this day, I think we just have to take little bites and make it seem achievable. So perspective.
That's so, so true. And, we can all take a lesson from that. So, do you believe that someone can do inner child work alone, or do you think they need some help?
I mean, I think therapy is great. I think, I think it's becoming, there's less of a stigmatism with it being,
Right.
something bad or there's something wrong with you. I think anymore it's kind of, people aren't afraid to say, yeah, I saw a therapist. So that's good. That's a good thing. But there's still people that have, a certain opinion of that. And there's good therapists and there's bad therapists in my experience. I've definitely seen therapists. So yeah, I would say professional help is good because someone you trust that is emotionally healthy or as healthy as you could imagine them. Like I have a friend that I would say is very emotionally healthy. Is she perfect? No. Does she know she has things to work on? Yes. But she's been a great mentor to me. And so my journey's been a mixture of some of the professional, some of the friends I trust that I would say are emotionally healthy and well-rounded, and I value their opinion. And then a lot of books. Like I think books can be good too, and self-reflection. So I really think it's a combination, but I think professional help is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm of the opinion that, you may start it by yourself, but there may come a point to where you need some professional help, There
There's
are
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That was like
no, no, no,
there's
no. Go ahead, go ahead.
tools and things and diagrams like that they can, give you to kind of to help you better wrap your head around maybe what your struggle is. Yeah, but I think the key is the objective opinion. Going to someone in your family probably not going to be helpul.
Right,
That
right,
more objective opinion or someone that can give you that.
right. And I share with especially with like networking groups that if like you need to surround yourself with like-minded people who think differently, because that's the way you can grow and learn. And I'm a part of a group here in Mobile, and I encourage the guys in the group. I said, listen, if you ever need anybody to talk to, of course you can call me because I'm the actual chaplain for the group. But I encourage them, listen, if you don't call me, talk to somebody. And I would suggest getting a friend out of city, out of state, somebody that don't know the players, don't know the names, not trying to figure out what's going on, somebody that you can throw up on and
Right.
actually first get it out. And then, in fact, they can be a good sounding board.
And
So,
I think journaling's good too,
oh,
because
yes.
I did that a lot. And I think it's helpful when you're trying to make, difficult decisions. And because if you journal and then you keep journaling, let's say 5 years pass and you go back and you're writing the same problem, you're able to reflect on that and be like, wow, that's still happening.
Mm,
It's very eye opening. And
right.
when it's written, it's real. And yeah, there's something about going back and reading things you wrote a long time ago.
Yeah. 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 So my next question is, how can people start a conversation when it comes to inner child healing, or if you think somebody needs it? How can you start a conversation like that?
So I would approach that. I mean, that's a tough one, but because it depends upon the person, right? Like my
Right.
son, I'll use my kids as an example. My son is an extrovert. My daughter's an introvert. My son, you know exactly what he's feeling, thinking. He just tells you, right? And you can tell by his mood, his reaction. It's just big personality. Whereas my daughter, her mode of communication, she's much more comfortable writing her feelings. And so I think it's understanding your audience or the person, but I think we want to be careful. Words matter here. So a lot of what I talk about is just there's small, subtle changes. And one of the big ones, especially when dealing with kids, but this works with anyone, is noticing behavior. Like I notice that you're not as joyful as you usually are. It's like, just noticing, because when we notice behavior, it's judgment free. It's a way for us to kind of point something out, but have no judgment about it. And then you're putting yourself in maybe providing some empathy. And then, have you ever felt like you wanted to talk to somebody? I'm happy to talk to you. Just, it really depends upon the person. But I think that the way you start is by noticing it. And not noticing it like, I noticed you've been a real jerk. I've noticed that you're less joyful. I notice that you have been less social. Is everything okay? Like, notice in a way that shows concern.
Okay.
That's how I would approach it.
Okay, well, cool. Well, listen, we're going to take another quick break, and then we'll be back to have some closing remarks for you. So we have a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHeal or choose Saconi Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. Again, we want to thank BetterHelp for their sponsoring of this podcast. But now, Kori, I do want to give those individuals who want to find out more about what it is you do and how they can connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So my website has everything on it, including my podcast. So that is CNC, because people can't always spell conscious. I mess it up all the time as well. So I know. So we just tried to simplify it. So my podcast is Conscious Not Crazy by Kori. And Kori's Kori, because everybody always gets that wrong. But to abbreviate that, my website is cncbykori.com. And everything is on my website. If you're curious about me speaking somewhere, if you want me, I do small group, I do large group. I come into homes. I'll come into homes almost like a Tupperware party, but let's talk about parenting. I could do it for educators or parents, but yeah. And then all my podcast episodes are also online on my website.
Cool. So are there any party words that you have for our listening audience?
I think I'm going to go back to my favorite quote. Don't give up better for perfect. I think that's a big, fear is the killer. I just posted something about this. Fear is the killer of all dreams, right? I tattooed faith over fear on my arm and across, because really, when you start like what we're doing, right?
Right.
We don't know what we're doing. You just start it. And then, and by starting it, you're taking steps, and every step you take to face the fear becomes less. And that's what we want for our kids. That's what we want for ourselves. So for me, a big passion of mine is fulfilling this calling. Like, this is a calling for me. This is like I'm just meant to do, because I genuinely care about people. I've always had a love for children, and I just want to help people. And, but yes, so have more faith than fear, and don't give up better for perfect. Don't be afraid to start. And what that looks like for people is, I'll do that when this is done. I'll get to that when I get that degree or get that certification, or I'll get to that when the summer's over. But if you keep doing that, you're never you just got to start doing it. You just got to take steps. Just be better, and just try to be better than yesterday.
That's it. And that takes intention. That's one thing that I'm heavy on, being intentional about where it is you want to go, what it is you want to do, because things don't just happen. You have to be intentional about them.
Yeah. When I launched all this, it's something I've done for a long time, but when my website was under construction, I was given business cards out with my website on it. And I'm like, well, I picked the right quote. Don't give up better for perfect. Because my website wasn't done yet. I'm like, oh, well.
There you go. There you have it. Well,
Thank
Kori, thank you so
you.
much for being on our podcast. Thank you for sharing that valuable insight. And I know that, parenting definitely can be a challenge, but, in order for us to, do like that quote, it's easier to build strong children than to fix broken people.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things that we all can contribute to making the next generation better than they are now. So,
Well,
all
thank
right,
you
with
so
that,
much for having me.
you are so welcome. And I'm looking forward to being on your podcast whenever we set that up. So I'm
We'll
excited
do
about
it.
that as well.
All right.
All right, with that being said, we will see y'all in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.